The obsidian blade stood vertical in the center of the war chamber, its surface drinking in the violet light of 3 suns. It had been there for 2,000 cycles, untouched, immovable, a monument to the greatest warrior our species had ever produced. I watched the human female approach it with the casual confidence of someone who had no idea what she was looking at. That thing? Captain Vera Hollis pointed at the blade with one finger, her other hand resting on her hip. That's what all the fuss is about? Admiral Krathzek, Supreme Commander of the Valtorian Armada, flexed his secondary mandibles in what I'd learned was extreme irritation. His crimson exoskeleton gleamed under the chamber lights. All 4 of his arms crossed in a gesture that transcended species. Universal skepticism. Human, he said, his translator rendering his clicks and chirps into flat, emotionless standard. That blade belonged to War Prime Sekthar the Unbroken. It weighs 473 of your kilograms. Its gravitational core requires the equivalent strength of 6 Valtorian shock troopers to even budge from its position. Right? Vera said, nodding like she was listening to directions to the nearest bathroom. So, pretty heavy then. I suppressed what humans would call a laugh. My name is Quillix, Junior Diplomatic Attaché to the Valtorian Military Council, and I'd been studying human behavior for exactly 3 months, long enough to know that Vera's tone meant she wasn't taking this seriously. Not nearly seriously enough, Krathzek continued, oblivious or perhaps willfully ignorant of her sarcasm. The blade has remained here since Sekthar fell in battle against the Kryn Collective. Legend states that only a warrior of equal strength and honor may claim it. Hundreds have tried. Valtorians, Kryn, even a Thulian warlord who lasted 15 seconds before his tentacles ruptured. Sounds messy, Vera said. It was. She walked closer to the blade, her boots making soft tapping sounds on the polished stone floor. The weapon stood nearly 3 meters tall, its edge serrated with teeth that could shred through battle cruiser hull plating. The handle was wrapped in some kind of scaled leather that, according to historical records, came from a creature that went extinct 4 centuries ago. So, let me get this straight, Vera said, circling the blade slowly. You brought me down here, interrupted my very important nap, to show me a really big sword that nobody can pick up? To demonstrate, Krathzek said, his voice dropping an octave, that there are limits even humanity cannot exceed. You have proven formidable allies in this war. Your tactical improvisation is, admittedly, impressive. Your soldiers fight with a recklessness that borders on the suicidal, but somehow works. However, he paused, letting that word hang in the air like a grenade, with the pin half pulled. There are still challenges beyond your physiology. Your species evolved on a light-gravity world. Your bone density, your muscle composition, your entire biological structure is fundamentally weaker than the apex warrior races of this galaxy. No human can lift that blade. It is simply impossible. Vera stopped circling. She looked at the Admiral, then at me, then back at the Admiral. Did you just say no human can lift it? I did. You're absolutely sure about that? Like, 100%? Bet your retirement pension on it? Certain? Krathzek's mandibles clicked twice. Amusement, though he'd never admit it. I am. Cool. Vera reached out and wrapped both hands around the handle. What happened next would be analyzed in military academies for the next decade. The blade moved. Not much, maybe half a centimeter. But in a room where the weapon had been completely stationary for 2 millennia, that half centimeter might as well have been a kilometer. The gravitational core inside the blade hummed, a sound like distant thunder mixed with grinding metal. Purple. Light flickered along the serrated edge. Krathzek's 4 arms uncrossed so fast, I heard the joints pop. Impossible, he whispered. You know, Vera said, her face reddening with effort, her shoulders bunching as she pulled. I really think you meant to say can't, right? Like, no human can't lift this blade? Double negative? because otherwise, this is super embarrassing for you. The blade lifted another centimeter. Then another. I found myself holding my breath, which was stupid, because I have 3 lungs and can hold my breath for 45 minutes. But something about the moment demanded it. The impossibility of it. The absolute absurdity. Vera's arms trembled. Sweat beaded on her forehead, running down her temples. The muscles in her neck stood out like cables. For a moment, I thought she'd have to stop, that physics and biology would reassert themselves and the universe would make sense again. Then she grinned. Come on, you stubborn piece of… Ugh, ceremonial, arg, nonsense. Each word came out between grunts of effort. The blade rose higher. 15. Krathzek made a sound I'd never heard before, something between a wheeze and a roar. This is not possible. The gravitational core alone should be crushing your skeletal structure. Your vertebrae should be compressing. You should be unconscious from the neural feedback. Should. Vera barked out a laugh that sounded slightly unhinged. You know what I should be doing? I should be back on Earth, working at my dad's restaurant, serving soup to cranky customers who complain that it's too hot, or too cold, or too soupy. But instead, I'm 3,000 light-years from home, fighting in a space war, and apparently proving your stupid legends wrong. The blade came free from the stone with a sound like a thunderclap. Vera staggered backward, the massive weapon wobbling in her grip. For one terrifying second, I thought she'd drop it, that the gravitational core would activate fully, and turn her into a very flat, very dead, human-shaped stain on the floor. She didn't drop it. Instead, she took a breath, adjusted her grip, and hefted the blade onto her shoulder like it was a piece of lumber. There, she said, breathing hard but grinning like she'd just won the lottery. Picked up. Now what? The silence in the chamber was so complete, I could hear the environmental systems cycling air. Krathzek stared at her with all 6 of his eyes. 3 of them were actually twitching, a sign of extreme neurological distress in Valtorians. You, he finally managed, are holding the blade of Sekthar. Yep. A weapon that, according to 2,000 cycles of history and scientific measurement, cannot be lifted by any being with less than 800 kilograms of muscle mass and a reinforced endoskeleton. Sounds right. You weigh approximately 70 kilograms. 68, actually. I've been skipping dessert. Krathzek's primary mandibles opened and closed several times. No sound came out. I'd never seen a Valtorian admiral speechless before. It was like watching a mountain forget how to be tall. I cleared my throat, which in my species sounds like gravel in a blender. Captain Hollis, perhaps you should, put the blade down before something unfortunate happens. Like what? Vera shifted the blade to her other shoulder, moving it like it weighed nothing. The purple glow had intensified, running along the serrated edge in pulsing waves. This thing's actually pretty balanced once you get the hang of it. Terrible for close-quarters combat, though. You'd take your own head off turning around in a corridor. That is not the point. Krathzek finally found his voice. It came out about 3 octaves higher than normal. The point is that you should be dead. Crushed. Flattened. Reduced to component molecules. But I'm not. Vera gave the blade an experimental swing. It cut through the air with a whistling sound that made my scales stand on end. So either your legends are wrong, your measurements are wrong, or humans are just built different. Personally, I'm voting for option 3. She planted the blade tip down on the floor. It sank into the stone about 5 centimeters, which should have been impossible given that the floor was reinforced composite, designed to withstand orbital bombardment. The weapon stood there, humming softly, the purple light casting strange shadows across Vera's face. Now, she said, are we going to stand here all day discussing the philosophical implications of me being able to lift your magic sword? Or are we going to talk about why you really brought me down here? Krathzek's eyes narrowed. All 6 of them. What do you mean? Oh, come on. Vera waved a hand dismissively. You didn't drag me to your most sacred war chamber just to show off a historical artifact. You're testing me. Testing all of us, probably. The human contingent. You want to know if we're really as tough as the battle reports say, or if we just got lucky against the Kryn. The Admiral said nothing, but his silence was answer enough. Vera laughed, the sound echoing off the chamber walls. We've been fighting alongside your fleets for 6 months. 6 months! And you still don't trust us. Still think we're the weak link. The species that needs to be protected, managed, kept away from the real dangerous stuff. Your species has only been spacefaring for 50 cycles, Krathzek said stiffly. Compared to the Valtorian Empire's 8,000 cycles of military history, you are infants. Talented infants, perhaps, but infants nonetheless. Infants who just picked up your unpickupable sword. That proves nothing except a statistical anomaly in human physiological development. Perhaps you are a mutant? An outlier? Or maybe, Vera said, her voice going quiet in a way that made me nervous. You don't actually know as much about humans as you think you do. She pulled the blade from the floor. It came, free, easily, too easily. The gravitational core should have been locked in place, should have required the same immense effort to extract as it did to lift initially. Instead, it moved like she'd just picked up a broom. Here's what I know, Vera continued, walking toward the Admiral. Krathzek, to his credit, didn't back away, even though a 3-meter blade was currently pointed in his general direction. I know that humans have been told we can't do things for our entire history. Can't fly, can't break the sound barrier, can't split the atom, can't leave our own planet, can't survive in space, can't fight aliens who've been doing this for thousands of years. She stopped about 2 meters away from him. The blade hummed between them. And you know what we said every single time? What? Watch us. The blade flared with light, so bright I had to look away. When I could see again, Vera had reversed her grip, holding the weapon handle down, offering it to the Admiral. I'm not keeping your sword, she said. That would be disrespectful. But I am keeping the memory of the look on your face when I picked it up. That's going to keep me warm on cold space station nights for years. Krathzek took the blade. With all 4 arms. Even then, his exoskeleton creaked under the strain. He settled it carefully back into its resting position, where it sank into the stone with a final, definitive thud. Captain Hollis, he said slowly, I believe I owe you an apology. You believe you owe me one? Or you actually do owe me one? I do. Then I accept. Vera stretched her arms over her head, her spine popping audibly. Now, if we're done with the supernatural strength demonstration, I'd really like to get back to my nap. We've got a briefing in 4 hours about the Kryn offensive, and I like to be well rested when people are trying to kill me. She turned to leave, got 3 steps toward the door, then paused and looked back. Oh, and Admiral? When you write up the report? About this? And I know you will. Maybe leave out the part where you said it was impossible. Just say, it was really, really hard. Saves face all around. She left the chamber whistling some earth tune I didn't recognize. Krathzek and I stood in silence for a long moment, staring at the blade, then at each other, then back at the blade. That, the Admiral finally said, did not go according to plan. No, sir. She was supposed to fail, to acknowledge her limitations, to accept her place in the military hierarchy. Yes, sir. Instead, she picked up a weapon that should have liquefied her internal organs and made jokes about it. Yes, sir. Another long silence. Quillix, in your 3 months studying human behavior, have you developed any theories about how they function? I thought about it. About everything I'd observed, all the data I'd compiled, every interaction I'd documented. No, sir, I admitted. Every time I think I understand them, they do something that invalidates my entire theoretical framework. It's like trying to predict the behavior of a star that operates on entirely different physics. Accurate, Krathzek moved toward the door, his footsteps heavy. Come, we have much to discuss with the War Council. If one human can do this, we need to recalibrate our entire strategic assessment of their species. Should we be worried, sir? He stopped at the threshold, looking back at the blade one more time. Worried? No. The humans are our allies. But concerned? Very much so. Any species that can casually violate the laws of physics while making sarcastic comments is either going to win this war for us or make it infinitely more complicated. And if both, sir? Then the galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place. We left the chamber, the blade standing silent once more, though I could have sworn the purple glow was just a little brighter than before, like it was laughing at all of us. Human laughter, I'd learned, was contagious. Apparently, so was human impossibility. The briefing room on Deck 17 smelled like recycled air and what humans called coffee, though I suspected it was actually closer to industrial solvent, mixed with optimism. 47 beings from 6 different species sat around the tactical display table, watching holographic projections of the Kryn offensive fleet movements. And in the center of it all, looking like she'd actually gotten that nap, was Captain Vera Hollis. So, they're coming through the Talvas corridor, she said, zooming in on the star map with a casual flick of her fingers. 3 dreadnoughts, support carriers, and about 200 fighter craft. Standard Kryn hammer formation. Commander Yilix, a Thulian tactical specialist whose tentacles were currently a stressed shade of orange, made a bubbling sound of disagreement. Standard would imply predictable. The Kryn have not been predictable since they learned humans entered the war. They are adapting. Everything adapts, Vera said. Doesn't mean they're good at it. Across the table, Lieutenant Marcus Webb, the only other human in the room, snorted into his coffee. He'd been with the fleet longer than Vera, almost 8 months now, and had the look of someone who'd seen too much and slept too little. His dark skin had taken on an almost gray tint under the artificial lighting, and his regulation uniform hung loose on what used to be a more substantial frame. "You tell them about the sword yet?" he asked Vera. "Word travels fast. Krathzek's entire security detail saw it. They're calling you the Gravity Breaker now. Very dramatic. The Valtorians love their dramatic titles." "I prefer, Captain. Thanks." Admiral Krathzek entered the briefing room, and everyone stood. Well, those with legs stood. Yilix sort of elevated his main body mass, and the 2 Skrill observers just vibrated at a higher frequency, which I'd learned was their version of respect. "Sit," Krathzek said, moving to the head of the table. His earlier embarrassment had been replaced by something harder, more focused. "We have a situation." The holographic display changed. The Kryn fleet markers were still there. But now, there was something else. A station. Massive, ancient, sitting in the middle of the Talvas corridor like a spider in its web. "That's Outpost Meridian," Marcus said quietly. "Been abandoned for 70 years. "Abandoned until 3 days ago," Krathzek corrected. "Our long-range sensors detected activity. The Kryn are reactivating it." "Why?" Vera leaned forward, her eyes scanning the data streams flowing beside the holographic station. "That place is a wreck. The Thulian-Valtorian War left it barely functional. Yilix's tentacles flickered pale blue, embarrassment, or maybe regret. We fought hard there. Many died. When the peace came, both sides agreed it was too damaged, too costly to repair. Better to leave it as a memorial." "Except the Kryn don't care about memorials," I added, pulling up the analysis I'd been working on for the past 6 hours. "They care about strategic positioning. Meridian sits at the junction of 4 major transit routes. Control it, and you control access to the entire sector. They are fortifying it," Krathzek said. "Our intelligence suggests they are bringing in weapons platforms, shield generators, possibly even a gravity well projector that could trap entire fleets in place." The room went quiet. A gravity well projector was a nightmare scenario. It created an artificial mass shadow that prevented faster-than-light travel within its range. Any fleet caught in one was forced to fight, unable to retreat, unable to call for reinforcements quickly enough to matter. "How long until it is operational?" asked Skrill Observer 2, its mechanical translator rendering its electromagnetic pulses into flat, clipped words. 4 days. Maybe 5, if we're lucky." "Then we hit them now," Marcus said, "before they finish setting up." "With what? Force?" Yilix's tentacles were now a dark purple, which I'd learned meant deep concern. "Our main battle group is 3 days away, dealing with the Kryn feint at the outer marker stations. By the time they disengage and reach Meridian, the installation will be operational and heavily defended. So, we use what we have here," Vera said. She was staring at the hologram with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "Fast strike. Boarding action. Take out the gravity well projector before they can activate it." "Suicide," Krathzek said flatly. "The Kryn will have the station locked down. Automated defenses, shock troops, probably booby traps in every corridor. Even if you made it inside, getting to the projector would require fighting through half the station." "Probably, yeah. Captain Hollis, I cannot authorize sending my soldiers to their certain deaths." "Then don't send your soldiers." Vera looked around the table, making eye contact with each being present. "Send us. The human contingent. We're small, we're fast, and apparently we're really good at doing things everyone says are impossible." Marcus put down his coffee cup slowly. "Vera, there's only 63 humans on this entire station." 64, counting the new engineer who just transferred in. "Against potentially thousands of Kryn? When you say it like that, it sounds bad." "Because it is bad." Vera grinned at him, that same slightly unhinged grin she'd given right before lifting the blade. "You remember that thing you told me when I first got here? About how humans have this really annoying habit of winning fights we shouldn't? I was drunk when I said that. Doesn't make it less true." Krathzek raised one primary arm. "Captain Hollis, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but Lieutenant Webb is correct. 64 humans against a fortified position is not a military operation. It is mass suicide with extra steps. Unless," I heard myself say, and immediately regretted it, when everyone turned to look at me. "Unless the humans are not alone." "Elaborate." "Attaché Quilix," Krathzek ordered. I pulled up another section of data, trying to keep my voice steady. "The station may be abandoned by our forces, but the structure itself remains intact. That includes the automated maintenance systems, the security protocols, the environmental controls. Everything runs on the old Thulian operating system, which means everything can be accessed remotely if you have the right codes." Yilix made a choking sound. "Those codes were destroyed after the war. Standard procedure. Standard Thulian procedure, yes. But humans have this fascinating approach to information security. They call it backing everything up, just in case." I looked at Marcus. "Your species maintains archives of every major conflict. Technical specifications, operational codes, tactical assessments. I found reference to Meridian in your historical database 3 hours ago, including partial system access protocols." Marcus blinked. "You hacked our military archives?" "I prefer the term researched thoroughly. That's definitely hacking. If we have access to the station systems," Vera cut in, her eyes bright. "We can create chaos. Open doors the Kryn think are sealed. Sealed doors they think are open. Vent atmosphere in strategic sections, maybe even turn some of those automated defenses against them. You would still be outnumbered, but not helplessly so." "Exactly. 64 humans causing problems in person, and me causing problems in the station mainframe. We'd be like, what's that Earth thing? A hornet's nest. Small, annoying, and surprisingly dangerous when provoked." "Wasps," Marcus corrected. And you're mixing metaphors. I'm mixing solutions. Big difference. The Skrill observers vibrated in unison, which meant they were conferring privately. After a moment, Observer 1 spoke. The statistical probability of success is 13.7%. Better than 0, Vera said cheerfully. Barely. I'll take barely over nothing. Admiral, I know this sounds insane. Trust me. I know. I'm the one saying it out loud, and even I think it's crazy. But here's the thing about humans. She stood up, placing both hands flat on the table. We specialize in crazy. It's kind of our whole deal. You saw what happened in the war chamber today. I did something that should have been impossible, and I did it because nobody ever told me it was impossible in a way that made me believe them. That blade nearly killed you, Krathzek pointed out. Nearly. But it didn't. And neither will the Kryn, because we're going to hit them so fast and so hard they won't know what's happening until it's over. The Admiral looked at Marcus. Lieutenant Webb, you have been with us longer than Captain Hollis. What is your assessment? Marcus took a long drink of his terrible coffee, grimaced, and set the cup down. Sir, in the 8 months I've been fighting this war, I've learned 3 things about humans in combat. 1, we're stubborn beyond all reason. 2, we're creative when backed into corners. 3, we're really, really hard to kill when we have something to prove. And you have something to prove? We've been trying to prove we belong out here since the day we left Earth. Every species we meet looks at us like we're cute puppies who wandered onto a battlefield. No offense, sir, but even you didn't think Vera could lift that blade. You tested her to show her our limitations, and instead, she showed you hers don't exist where you thought they did. He stood up beside Vera. So yeah, I think we can do this. I think 64 humans and 1 very clever attaché can take that station back before the Kryn know what hit them. Yilix's tentacles cycled through several colors before settling on a resigned yellow. If the humans go, the Thulians go. We built that station. We know its corridors better than any schematic. The Skrill will provide technical support, Observer 2 added. If the operating system requires translation or adaptation, we are equipped to assist, 1 by 1. Representatives from each species present volunteered forces. Not many. Just enough to tip the scales from certain death to merely probable death. But it was something. Krathzek watched this happen with an expression I couldn't read. Finally, he sighed, a sound like air escaping a pressure lock. This is against every tactical doctrine I have studied, every strategic principle I have learned in 40 cycles of military service. Good thing we're writing new doctrine then, Vera said. You are all insane. Absolutely. So, do we have your authorization? The Admiral stared at the holographic station for a long moment. Then, he reached forward and tagged it with a mission marker. The display changed, showing approach vectors, insertion points, and about 1 million different ways this could go catastrophically wrong. You have 6 hours to plan and equip. After that, the Kryn reinforcements arrive, and the window closes. Succeed or fail, you must be off that station before then, or you will be stranded when they activate the gravity well. 6 hours is plenty, Vera said confidently. Captain Hollis, one more thing. Krathzek fixed her with all 6 eyes. Earlier today, you demonstrated abilities that our science cannot explain. You did something impossible. I need to know if you can do it again. Lift the sword? Win a fight you should not be able to win. Vera smiled. And for the first time since I'd met her, it wasn't sarcastic or challenging, it was genuine, warm, and somehow more terrifying than anything I'd seen her do. Admiral, every day humans wake up. We're doing something evolution says we shouldn't be able to do. We're breathing recycled air in a metal can flying through hard vacuum. We're eating food synthesized from base proteins. We're fighting wars with species that have had interstellar empires since before we discovered fire. Every single day is a fight we shouldn't win. She picked up her datapad and headed for the door. Ask me again in 6 hours. I'll give you a better answer then. The planning session lasted 4 hours. The equipment loading took 90 minutes. The team brief took another 30. And through it all, I watched Vera move through the controlled chaos like she'd been born for it. Humans, I'd discovered, had a talent for organized mayhem. The assault shuttle lifted from the main hangar at exactly the 6-hour mark. Inside were 64 humans, 9 Thulians, 4 Skrill, and me, the diplomatic attaché who'd somehow talked himself into a combat insertion. Vera sat across from me, checking her weapons with methodical precision. Plasma rifle, backup sidearm, combat knife, and strapped to her back, secured in an improvised harness, was the blade of Sekthar. "Admiral let you take it?" I asked, surprised. He said, "If I could lift it, I could carry it into battle. Figured it might come in handy." She grinned. Plus, the look on the Kryn's faces when they see a human with a legendary Valtorian warblade is going to be priceless. The shuttle hit atmosphere, and the turbulence began. No one spoke. Humans had this thing they did before combat, a sort of focused silence that felt like potential energy waiting to explode. Marcus, sitting next to the pilot, checked the tactical display. "Kryn patrol pattern has a gap in 17 minutes. That's our window." "Then we hit them in 16, Vera said. "I like being early." The station grew larger in the view screen. Even damaged, Meridian was impressive. Thousands of windows, hundreds of docking ports, weapon platforms that had been silent for decades, but were now coming back online, glowing with hostile intent. 5 minutes, the pilot called out. Vera stood up, magnetic boots locking her to the deck. "Listen up, we all know the plan." Insertion teams Alpha through Delta hit the main hangar and secure our exit route. Echo and Foxtrot teams push to the reactor level and keep the Kryn busy. Golf team, you're with me. We go straight to the command center, where Quillix says he can access the main systems. I said I think I can access them, I corrected nervously. Positive thinking, Quillix. Positive thinking. She checked her rifle one more time. The Kryn think they own this station. They think they're safe. They think we're too weak, too slow, too primitive to stop them. So let's show them what thinking wrong looks like. The humans started making noise then, not quite cheering, but something close to it. A battle sound that had no translation in any other species' language. Pure defiance, mixed with adrenaline and something that might have been joy. 30 seconds. The shuttle shook as point defense systems locked on. Countermeasures deployed, filling space with chaff and electronic noise. We dropped fast, using the station's own mass to shield us from the worst of the incoming fire. Brace! We hit the hangar with a crash that would have killed most species. Humans just grunted and started moving. The rear ramp dropped. Plasma fire immediately lit up the hangar. Kryn shock troops, dozens of them, armed and ready. Vera was first out, the blade coming off her back in one smooth motion. She didn't charge straight in. That would have been stupid. Instead, she moved to cover, using the shuttle bulk as a shield while the others deployed behind her. A Kryn warrior, 2.5 meters of chitinous armor and rage, rushed her position. She waited until it was 3 meters away, then swung the blade in a horizontal arc. The gravitational core activated mid-swing. What happened next violated several laws of physics and possibly good taste. The blade cut through the Kryn's armor like it wasn't there, the gravitational field simultaneously crushing and bisecting the warrior. Purple light flared, and the Kryn just stopped existing in 2 separate pieces. "Well?" Vera said, looking at the blade with new respect. "That's definitely going in the after-action report." The battle for the hangar lasted 4 minutes. 4 minutes of plasma fire, explosions, humans doing impossible things like dodging shots they shouldn't be able to see and making kills they shouldn't be able to calculate. When the last Kryn fell, Alpha Team secured the perimeter, while the rest of us pushed deeper into the station. The corridors of Meridian were tight, dark, and filled with the smell of ozone and old fear. Emergency lighting cast everything in shades of red and shadow. Perfect ambush territory. We ran into the first ambush 6 minutes in. Kryn dropped from ceiling hatches, weapons blazing. 2 humans went down, wounded, but alive. The rest returned fire while Vera carved through the attackers with the blade, each swing creating miniature gravity wells that crushed anything within 2 meters. "Quillix!" she shouted over the sound of combat. "How far to the command center?" I checked my portable terminal, trying to match the corridors to the old schematics. 3 levels up. Section 12. But there's no direct route. We'll have to go through the medical bay. Medical bay it is. Move! 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 We fought through section after section. Every corridor brought more Kryn, more resistance. But we also started seeing the effects of the system access codes. Doors sealing at random, trapping Kryn warriors in compartments. Atmospheric pressure dropping in strategic sections, forcing enemy troops to fall back. Automated turrets that suddenly didn't recognize Kryn IFF signals and started shooting at their former owners. "Good work, Quillix," Vera called out as we reached the medical bay entrance. "I have not accessed anything yet." "Then who's messing with the station systems?" The answer came over the communication channel. The Skrill, their electronic voices overlapping in harmony. "We have penetrated the outer security layers. Basic functions are now accessible. Working on deeper protocols. Beautiful, keep it up." The medical bay was a nightmare. The Kryn had converted it into a forward command post, and it was packed with soldiers, equipment, and what looked suspiciously like explosive charges set to deny us access. "They know we are coming," one of the Thulians observed, his tentacles a practical gray. "Course they do. We're not exactly subtle." Vera looked at the sealed door, then at the blade in her hands. "How thick is this door?" "Reinforced composite, 30 centimeters, I said. "Designed to withstand direct weapons, fire, and maintain quarantine integrity." "So pretty thick." "Very thick." She smiled. "Watch this." Vera planted her feet, both hands on the blade handle, and swung at the door. The gravitational core flared so bright I had to look away. When I could see again, there was a hole in the door. Not cut through, but compressed inward. The composite material folded in on itself like paper. Through the hole, I could see Kryn scrambling for weapons. "Frag out!" Marcus shouted, tossing grenades through the opening. The explosions were muffled by the thick walls, but the screams were not. We poured through the breach. The fight was close, vicious, the kind of combat where every second mattered and every mistake was fatal. Humans fell. So did Thulians. The Skrill, being energy beings housed in mechanical frames, simply transferred to backup bodies when their primaries were damaged. But slowly, impossibly, we pushed through. The command center door stood before us, sealed, armored, and, according to my scans, defended by at least 20 Kryn on the other side. "Can you access the door controls?" Vera asked, breathing hard. "Working on it." My fingers flew across the terminal. The old codes were good, but the Kryn had added new layers of security. Breaking through required bypassing encryption I'd never seen before. Behind us, the sounds of more Kryn approaching. We were running, out of time. 30 seconds, Quillix. That's all I can give you." The encryption fought back. Each layer I broke revealed another. Sweat ran down my scales, which should have been impossible, but stress does strange things to biology. 20 seconds. A pattern emerged. The Kryn encryption wasn't random. It was based on their military hierarchy protocols. Rigid, predictable, and because of that, exploitable. 10 seconds. I found the back door, a maintenance access left over from the Thulian builders. The Kryn had never thought to seal it, because they assumed no one would know it existed. Got it? The door opened. 20 Kryn warriors stood between us and the main control console. They opened fire immediately. Plasma bolts turned the air white-hot. We returned fire, advancing step by step, using the blade as both weapon and shield. The gravitational field deflected incoming fire, bending space around Vera in ways that made my head hurt. We lost 3 more humans. 2 Thulians went down protecting the wounded. A Skrill core was hit so badly it couldn't transfer, but we kept moving. Vera reached the command console first, the blade singing through the air, cutting through Kryn like they were made of shadows. Marcus covered her right flank. A Thulian named Velix, his tentacles now a defiant crimson, held the left. And I ran straight for the terminal, praying to 17 different gods that the access codes would work. They did. The system opened like a flower, spreading its petals to show me everything. Life support, weapons, defenses, and right there in the center of it all, the gravity well projector. Still offline. Still vulnerable. "I have it!" I shouted. "The projector is on sublevel 19, Sector 42. If we destroy it, the Kryn lose their tactical advantage." "Can you overload it from here?" Vera asked, using the blade to literally bat away incoming fire. "No! The safety protocols require manual override. Someone has to physically destroy the dove. Power couplings." "Of course they do." She looked at Marcus. "Get everyone back to the shuttle. Quillix and I will handle the projector." "That's suicide." "Yeah, but we're really good at those, remember?" More Kryn poured into the command center. The battle had drawn every soldier on the station. We were surrounded, outnumbered, and running out of ammunition. And then, Vera did something that would be talked about for generations. She planted the blade in the floor, released the gravitational safety limits, and let it activate fully. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. A gravity well formed with the blade at its center, pulling everything within 10 meters toward it. Kryn warriors stumbled, fell, were dragged, screaming toward the weapon. Equipment, debris, even loose panels from the walls, all of it compressed into the space around the blade. "Run!" Vera shouted. "I'll hold them here. You'll die. Only if I can't pull the blade out again. Now go!" Marcus grabbed my arm and pulled. We ran, the rest of the team streaming behind us. Behind us, I heard the screams of Kryn caught in the artificial gravity, the sound of metal tearing, and underneath it all, Vera laughing. Actually, laughing. We reached sub-level 19 3 minutes later. The gravity well projector sat in its mounting cradle, a massive piece of technology that looked like a mechanical flower made of threat and mathematics. Destroying it would take time we didn't have. Unless... Back! Everyone back! I accessed the station systems again, found the reactor controls, and did something that would either work brilliantly or kill us all immediately. I rerouted all power to this single section. The projector activated. Not fully, just enough to create a localized field. Space compressed around the device, the gravity increasing exponentially. The projector, designed to create these fields externally, couldn't handle being inside one. It started tearing itself apart, metal shrieking, components failing in cascading sequence. "That's our cue to leave," Marcus yelled. We ran back toward the hangar, picking up team members along the way. Alpha Team had held our exit, barely, their ammunition nearly spent and their wounded piling up. And in the command center, the gravity well collapsed. Vera emerged from the corridor, the blade on her back, her armor scorched and dented, but alive. Impossibly, improbably alive. "Time to go!" she shouted. "This whole section's about to decompress." We piled into the shuttles, wounded first, then the others. Vera was last on, because, of course she was. The shuttles lifted off as explosions rippled through the station. The projector's destruction had triggered a chain reaction, taking out the reactor stabilizers. Meridian was dying, and it was taking every Kryn on board with it. We cleared the station with seconds to spare, flying through debris and fire, the pilots pushing the engines past safe limits because safe limits were for people who weren't being chased by exploding space stations. When we finally docked with the main fleet, Admiral Krathsek was waiting in the hangar. He took one look at Vera, covered in burns and Kryn blood, holding the blade like it weighed nothing, and made a sound that might have been laughter. "You did it," he said. "You actually did it. Told you we would. You also lost 12 soldiers." Vera's smile faded. "Yeah, we did. 12 humans, 3 Thulians, and a Skrill who won't be getting a backup this time. 16 beings who died because I led them into an impossible fight. 16 beings who died as warriors, stopping an enemy that would have killed millions." Krathsek placed one hand on her shoulder. "This is not Earth, Captain. In this galaxy, war has costs. But you paid those costs to achieve a victory that our best strategists said was impossible. That means something. Does it? Ask me again when we win this war. I suspect the answer will be yes." The debriefing lasted hours. The casualty reports were filed. The medal commendations were written up, though Vera tried to refuse hers until Marcus told her the dead deserved to be honored. And refusing made their sacrifice political. 3 days later, I found Vera in the observation deck, staring at the stars. The blade sat beside her, somehow looking smaller now, less mythical and more just a really big sword. "Quillix?" she said without turning. "No, come to say thank you." "For what?" "For showing me that impossible is just a word, that the only real limits are the ones we accept." I sat beside her, looking out at the infinite dark, also for not getting me killed, though that was probably more luck than planning. She laughed. "Little bit of both." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Vera spoke again, her voice softer. "Do you think we'll win this war? Honestly? I have no idea. The Kryn are powerful, numerous, and they don't make the same mistake twice." I paused. "But I've learned something about humans. You don't just fight wars. You fight expectations. You fight limitations. You fight the universe itself when it tells you something can't be done. And somehow, impossibly, you win. Not every time. No, but enough times to matter." She picked up the blade, hefting it easily now. "Krathsek says I can keep it. Says anyone who can lift it has earned it. Feels weird, carrying around a piece of someone else's history. Then make it part of yours. That blade has a new story now. The story of the human who lifted the impossible and used it to save thousands of lives. When you put it that way, it sounds almost heroic. Because it was." Vera smiled at me, that genuine smile again. "Thanks, Quillix. For everything. For the codes, for the company, for not dying when I thought you would. Any time, Captain. Though let's maybe not do anything quite that impossible for at least a week. I need time for my internal organs to relocate themselves." She laughed, and the sound echoed through the observation deck. Outside, the stars turned slowly in the dark, and somewhere in the galaxy, the Kryn were learning a hard lesson. Never tell a human something is impossible. They take it as a personal challenge,